Nelson Mandela spent 67 years of his life in the service of humanity. As we mark Nelson Mandela International Day, we explore some of the good causes that were inspired by his legacy. Good evening and welcome to Interface. My name is Rams Mabote. A young man from Mpumalanga is changing the lives of young girls by providing a basic need. And by so doing, he's ensuring that the girls stay in school. Let's have a look at this report produced by Rosalia Whitehead.
Menstrual hygiene is an issue that most don't want to talk about. Yet globally, approximately 52% of the female population, which is 26% of the total population, is of reproductive age. For many, buying sanitary pads, which could cost anything between 14 Rand and 18 Rand, is as easy as buying bread and milk. With high levels of poverty, millions of girls and women in South Africa cannot afford this basic necessity. Every month, the majority of girls in Africa miss a week of school because they are on their period. This means that on average, a girl child may miss up to 50 days of schooling each year. 26% of rural girls in South Africa drop out entirely because they lack access to sanitary products. This problem is not unique to South Africa. 83% of girls in Burkina Faso and 77% in Niger have no place to change their sanitary menstrual materials in school. These issues also affect girls in India, Cambodia and Iran. Keeping girls in school is important in order to achieve gender equality. South Africa, like many governments around the world, have committed to advancing gender equality in order to create an equal society and fight gender discrimination. But since 2009, the appointment of women in South African senior management positions has disappointingly flatlined at 28%. While there are more girls than boys who enroll in grade 12, the dropout rate for girls is on the increase, adding to the slow pace of gender equality in South Africa. Figures show that South African women are the poorest, the less educated and most likely to be unemployed. Supporting girls to stay in school will ensure that they get an education and become economically independent. It's not just girls' education that suffers during menstruation, it's also their health. 70% of all reproductive diseases in India are caused by poor menstrual hygiene. It can also affect maternal mortality. A report on menstruation discovered that women and girls were using cow dung, sand, cotton wool, pages from an exercise book, and leaves from trees as a pad. Girls also suffer from social exclusion because of inaccurately held social beliefs about menstruation. Menstruating women and girls are wrongly considered to be contaminated, dirty and impure, limiting access to hygiene, community and family time. Responding to this challenge, civil society is giving a voice to the voiceless. NGOs such as Caring for Girls and Project Dignity are mobilizing communities to find solutions to menstrual hygiene. This is when the idea of a reusable, washable sanitary pad was born. Giving young girls a sanitary pad has restored their dignity and removed the shame or embarrassment. They have hope and an opportunity to be free, participate in daily activities and continue their studies. This year, the Nelson Mandela Foundation is supporting the Caring for Girls program. By sending an SMS to 42513, you can pledge 30 Rand to help underprivileged girls with sanitary towels and a menstrual hygiene program. Rosalia Whitehead, Interface, Johannesburg.
Thank you, Rosalia Whitehead, for that report. Our first guest is Charlotte Sibia, a student at Fort Hare, who is able to study because of the generous support from Caring for Girls initiative led by Richard Mabaso. Welcome to Interface, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Ross.
I look at that insight and I have to ask myself, how did you get in touch with Caring for Girls? What was in your space at that time?
I was in grade 11 and we were a bunch of girls that there was the launching of the Caring for Girls and we all went there I remember I was asked to talk about sanitary towels, and it was embarrassing for me as a girl to having to speak about it in front of males per se. However, from that day, I've learned how important it was, and that it helps us as girls in general to be bold and be confident. Having to have the right necessities when you're on your periods or during your menstruation cycle, it helps you to be bold and to be confident, and that when you're in school, there's nothing that's disturbing you because you know that you have the right necessities and there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Before you got in touch with Caring for Girls, did you lose school days? Did you have to spend time away from, even peers because you could not afford sanitary towels?
Not really. Mm-hmm. However, I've seen girls that have went through that, mm-hmm. and it was really difficult because sometimes even the teachers cannot help, and they go through embarrassment, and then it becomes, as a girl, you also feel embarrassed even if it was not you, but seeing another fellow mate going through that.
This initiative, by the way, embarrasses me as a man, and I'll tell you why it does, because I have absolutely no clue. I mean, of course, I had no clue about the things that I just heard from Rosalia, but also assuming that this is just something that is so affordable, everybody should have it. And the story I listened to tells me that it's actually not that affordable to everybody else.
It's not. It's definitely not. I've seen girls from the community I come from and from other neighbor communities that cannot really afford sanitary towels. Sometimes it's because you're living with your grandma. She was used to using other products that are not really helpful, that are not hygienic at all. However, because they're old, they cannot really understand that times have changed and you really need safe and healthy necessities for you to be confident in yourself.
After the break, I'm going to be speaking to Richard Mabaso, who founded Trek for Mandela and Caring for Girls, and also the CEO of Nelson Mandela Foundation, Sello Hatang. And I'm going to ask them this question, but I need to ask you first. How does it matter that it's men who are driving an initiative like this to take care of girls?
Oh my God, it humbles me. It's surprising. The first time I heard of it, I was like, what? For instance, my dad, if I asked my dad to go buy me sanitary towels, he would just tell me, okay, I'll come fetch you, and then we'll go buy them together. It's not something that I'd expected to come from a man, but it's really humbling. And as girls, we really, really are grateful that there are men out there who have the initiative to make girls something out there, because when you have confidence in yourself, you can be whatever you want to be.
We do invite listeners to send questions on Facebook, and I was going to read them later. I already have a question here from somebody saying, we should be supplying more sanitary towels in schools instead of condoms. What do you feel about that? That's Eric Martinesh, who wrote on our Facebook page.
That's true, because at the end of the day, what I believe that what should be taught out there is for young people to abstain and focus on their studies, so that we make our South Africa a better South Africa. Because at the end of the day, education is the key to success. You cannot have it both ways. Everything has its own time. However, when you give sanitary towels to people that really, really need them, you're giving them the confidence to continue studying and be in a learning environment comfortably.
How are you still involved with Caring for Girls? Are you?
Yes, I am.
How so?
Hence, I was one of the first beneficiaries of Caring for Girls. I've become an ambassador of Caring for Girls. And everywhere I go, they know there is Caring for Girls out there. And it made me to take girls closer to my heart in a way that I don't want to see any other girls suffering out there. I always advise other young girls that you have to study, you have to stay in school, you have to be focused, and at the end of the day, you're making yourself better. I believe that women are very strongholds. I once said that phrases should change. We should no longer say that behind a successful man there is a supportive woman, but we should say alongside. So I believe in girl power, in woman power, and I believe in girl empowerment. So, yeah.
Well, in you, they have a very great Ambassador Charlotte Sibia. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
And all the best. After the break, we speak to Richard Mabaso, and founder of Trek for Mandela and Caring for Girls. as well as CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Sello Hatang. They are doing final preparation to summit Mount Kilimanjaro to raise funds to support young women and stay in school. Welcome back. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is calling on South Africans to honor Madiba by contributing to a worthy cause. Our guest is Richard Mabaso, the founder of Trek for Mandela campaign, which is aimed at raising money to help poor girls to stay in school. He's joined by the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Sello Hatang. They are doing final preparations to summit Mount Kilimanjaro to raise funds. If you'd like to contribute to this cause, SMS girl child to 42513 to pledge 30 Rand. As usual, you may contribute to this discussion, comment on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC2, or tweet at Interface on SABC. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Well, let's start with the craziness. Kilimanjaro, are you crazy?
When I was challenged last year, I thought this guy is nuts to challenge me to climb with him. But then I thought, after taking the challenge, I thought, maybe I should challenge others to come with me.
Yes.
And only to find that there are many crazy people, but the craziness is based on what's out there, why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because most of the people who agreed to do it, we now have 38 people, who include about 6 CEOs and about another 5 or 6 celebrities. And it tells you that most of these people are doing it because of the cause.
Yeah.
So the cause is what drives you.
So the cause is not to climb the mountain. You're using the mountain to draw people to the cause. Because I don't see you getting to the summit.
Thank you so much, Karam. You know, my confidence has just been knocked down.
Richard, let's talk business. How did you conceive the Trek for Mandela campaign? I mean, I'm going to talk to you about the caring for girls, but the Trek for Mandela campaign, how, why?
Okay, for me, they both intertwined because it was after I overheard a conversation between my mom and my niece. She was actually telling my mom that she's experiencing menstrual pains, and that was for the first time. And then my mom was like, because I was there, I was like sleeping, but my mom was like, no, you can't talk about this in front of the uncle. What are you thinking? So I think that experience and me overhearing that, I then immediately decided that I want to do something about it. But, and something that you mentioned earlier during your interview with Charlotte, that you feel embarrassed. You want to do something, but you're like saying, but how do I start? So for me, the closest thing was to call a friend of mine, Sibusiso Vilane, and then I said, my friend, I know you do lots of mountain climbing, but this time around, I want you to take me up Kilimanjaro. But to make sure that it's impactful, I want to climb for Mandela Day, but at the same time to create awareness for young girls who know the challenges that they will go through during their menstrual periods. So, and the rest is history. Today, for me, and I said to someone earlier that today for me, this interview is about going back memory lane, whereby you now look back and say, well, we thought of a Trek for Mandela as an expedition program, but to climb the mountain, but secondly, to emulate Madiba. So you put yourself through a challenge which emulates the long walk to freedom, but the most important thing is when you get to the top or the summit point of Kilimanjaro, it's called Uhuru Peak. And Uhuru, it's a Swahili word which stands for freedom. So we are then climbing to help young girls attain their freedom.
But you're asking me to SMS 42513 to pledge 30 Rand. How does that help? It sounds like 30 Rand is not something that you should be climbing Kilimanjaro for.
Yes, but you know, I was talking to a colleague earlier from the Banking Association, who are really one of our biggest partners from the beginning. I mean, there's Nelson Mandela Foundation, the Department of Education in Mpumalanga, and KZN, and Lilets. They started with the initiative from the beginning. So I was chatting to her earlier, And then she said, you know what, I went home this weekend, I was in Swaziland, and I had to explain to my grandmother why I'm climbing Kilimanjaro. She said, you know what, grandma, every step I take, I get 30 rands, and it keeps one girl child in school for a month. Imagine if I were to take the 19,000 steps, which I need to be able to take up Kilimanjaro. So you can multiply that by the 19,000 by 30, and you can see the multiplier effect.
So let me bring you in here. How, as Nelson Mandela Foundation, did you see this cause being fitting in what the foundation has been all about all this time?
You know, when Richard came, he met with my colleague, my former colleague, Frank Menkes, and explained what he had in mind. So I got brought into the conversation, said, Richard has this idea. I said, well, you know, most people have ideas, but what is it that will be special about this? And what attracted us is that here's a man who is putting his own body behind an initiative where it's girls and it's a taboo for even men to think about.
I need to take a break because we need to talk about that taboo. That taboo is most important to me. We come back after this break. Welcome back. If you'd like to contribute to the Trek for Mandela campaign, SMS Girl Child to 42513 to pledge 30 Rand. As usual, you may contribute to this discussion. Comment on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC2, or tweet at SABC, at Interface on SABC. Richard, I want to know, you told me how many people are already have pledged to take the walk, but how much are you hoping to raise?
We're hoping to raise 40 million rand, and I think the numbers at the moment are promising. We looked at the updates on Thursday. We are sitting at about over 60,000 girls. We need to reach 270,000 girls.
So 40 million will reach 270,000 girls. For how long?
For 12 months.
For 12 months.
But what we do is we invite people to adopt schools, and then through that adoption, they can then support a school for a minimum of 12 months up to 5 years. So we have a 5-year plan, which from this year is 270,000 girls. But by year 2020, we want to have reached 2 million girls. And our recent, one of our recent stakeholders that took the program, Caring for Girls, and they have been taking it nationally, is the IDC. So their CEO is climbing, for example, for up to 12,000 girls already. And through that, we are able to then say, use the likes of those corporates to say, go and challenge other CEOs. And as Mr. Silo Hatang said earlier, that he was challenged, but then he took the challenge and challenged other people, which I think that's what we're trying to create, the message that we can do our best, and through doing our best, inspire others as well to do the same.
Silo, allow me to be cynical about this. Isn't it easier for a CEO to sign a check than to climb a mountain to do this?
You know, it's easy to sign a check. And when I called all the CEOs, I said, you know, you could give us money, but it's about ensuring that you put your body behind it, because then there would be more people who are aware of it. If you look at the CEO of IDC, for example, Jeff Kleiner, he has thus far already made many corporates aware through a letter. He wrote a letter to all the corporates that they work with. And it's that you need, because then people say, is this really still a problem? We did a project we went to Northwest, Kotlextop, where I was born. We went there, and these young women, 4 young women, collected funds, like 5 Rand, and they went into one office, and this woman started weeping. And she said, I'm weeping because I was once that girl. We need to be reminded that that problem has not gone away. That until such time that there's no girl who stays away from school because they don't have access to sanitary towels, we can't rest.
Semi Matlaila writes on Facebook, should we neglect the boy child? More boys than girls are forced to survive by themselves and resort to crime.
You know, these are tough choices. that have to be made. And in fact, this year when we launched Caring for Girls Track for Mandela 2015, we said in 2016 we'll have boys in the program. But you know, there's no doubt that women the young girls still feel the brunt of inequality. Inequality still affects women more. And until such time that we pull the women out of that, we still have to have more responsibility towards the girl child.
I asked Charlotte this question, which I need to ask you, that came from Eric, and he said, shouldn't they rather provide sanitary towels in schools than condoms, Richard?
Well, I think, and Charlotte gave you the perspective, and I like, the fact that she's young, and, this is youth matters. And I think the government or whoever is providing the condoms is trying to maybe address a certain need. But if you were to look at the two, for me, is menstruation is a condition that no one can run away from. Whereas what Charlotte said, there are a couple of choices there, of which abstaining is one of them. So I would say that we would encourage that, we make more and more sanitary pads available. But also just to go back quickly, to give you your viewers a bit of a background on the program.
And make it quick.
Yes.
Okay.
When we started with just Sibusiso and I, and we reached about 5,000-6,000 girls. And then when we went back, we reached about 10,000 girls. But last year, we're now sitting on 100,000 girls. And then this year, we're going to 270. So maybe we can then take the success of Caring for Girls and sit around the table with all the CEOs and all the participants and everyone who's a part of the program to look at now, how can we go to the boy child? How can we bring the boy child in?
In fact, speaking of the boy child, Silo, what do I tell my boy child? How do I tell him to support a cause like this? How is it important to him to see this cause as important to his sister?
I think the best way of communicating that, it's to say that woman will be your wife or your girlfriend soon. So until such time that you are aware of the needs of the girl child, you can be a whole man. So a whole man is the one that is aware of the struggles of the girl, because that girl will be living with him sometime.
So conclude. When is the walk taking place and when is it finishing?
We're leaving the country on the 13th, next week, Monday, which is very scary. And then we start climbing.
Should scare you.
No, but yeah. Well, it's just thinking of the mountain itself. But we're leaving the country on the 13th. We have a huge, rousing send-off from Mrs. Graça Machel. And then we start climbing on the 14th. Then we summit on the 18th. At the crack of dawn on the 18th of July, we're on top of Uhuru Peak. We summit, we come back on the 20th, we're back in South Africa. And then the 21st is back to business.
Richard, I can tell you this much. You are a hero. There are many people looking at you now and thinking, this man. And I'm sure that Silo knows that you're doing a great job. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen. I just want to repeat that don't stop doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, and thank you. That's how we end our program this evening. From me, Rams Mabot and the team, good night and God bless.